Hello and welcome to another edition of My Wednesday from the Wednesday week. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening and tuning in over the last few weeks since we started this extra podcast. I say it's been fantastic, and I think the feedback's been good. So hopefully you're all enjoying it and watching it. So thank you very much. And this week I am joined by Ryan Goodison. Ryan, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. All good. Thank you very much. Been a long day today. I know it's been bank holiday weekend, but kind of worked all the way through it. So it's nice to relax tonight, to be honest, and just have a chat about Wednesday. Have you?
Sit down with a beer and talk about Wednesday. Well, that's what a lot of us like to do most of the time, isn't it? So why not?
Yeah, it was Wednesday. You had me working on on Sunday evening, but there's worse lines of work, I suppose, than that one. But it was the other side of the city Saturday night, so not so good.
All right, yeah, we'll leave that one then, mate, if you don't mind. So obviously, we'll start from the beginning, Ryan, if you don't mind. So obviously, young whippersnapper. I'll not ask your age because I'm not like that, but obviously, a few years ago, should we say that you were born, and obviously Wednesday. So let's start from the beginning then. Like I say, how did you, or what was the reason that you became a Wednesdayite? Because obviously you are a Wednesdayite. You're on this podcast, mate.
Certainly am, yeah. So, I mean, ask my age all you want. I'm 38. That's absolutely not an issue.
You are a whippersnapper compared to me, though, mate. I'm 42, so I've got a couple of years on you.
Not far behind you, mate. We'll always have. So, first real memories, of getting into football, was around 1990, and it was kind of Italian England that I remember starting a bit of an affiliation with football, so to speak. Obviously, that was the start of pretty decent times in the Wednesday world as well around then. Yeah. So the reason to be honest, the reason I'm a Wednesdayite over the other side of the city or anywhere else is simply down to the fact of my old man and his brothers. I just come from a massive Wednesday family background, and I wouldn't have been allowed it any other way. I'm glad I'm that way, but I wouldn't have been allowed any other way. I think my old man would have disowned me. But yeah, so Italian I remember starting to like football, and then it was obviously from, it's going back longer than I would like to think now, but it was from that point my dad took me to my first game, which, if memory serves me right, and I'm pretty certain my first home game was the season following Italian United, the 1991 season, and we played Hull City at home, and David Hurst scored 4. I'm certain that was the first game he ever took me to. And it was certainly early that season. It would beat Hull 5-1, I think, and Hurst scored 4. One was basically a bicycle kick type thing, and there was one I remember him. It was like a touch on the halfway line, and he ran the length of the half and not one in off the far post. So yeah, that was my earliest memory as a Wednesday fan. Great atmosphere, and that match day then obviously revolved around my dad and my dad's brother Jeff. And it was very much a case my dad never drove, so we'd get picked up, go and sit in Hillsborough Working Men's Club. I remember that really vividly. I've not been in there for years, to be honest. Kind of match day drinking's a little bit different now. We kind of go Queen away, but I remember full-size snooker table, being in the snooker room, like class atmosphere, nothing I've ever seen before. That was the first game, and then kind of never really looked back from that.
It was 5-1, and it was Hurst did score 4 goals as well. So your memory is a lot better than mine, because I just had to quick Google that, mate.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, while you were just talking, then I just thought I'd just see that, and yeah, it was I think 1st of September.
Spent a lot of years, as you do, like on these sort of things. After that, watching good old like season review VHSs. So it's a bit more vivid because I know I've watched the game like in the highlights back a few times, but I'm certain that was the first game I went to as a Wednesday fan. In that, to be honest, I remember that first season, my dad was just getting into things. So he took me to the majority of Wednesday game, and it was a good first season that as a young lad. Like another game remember from that season, it was obviously the season that we went on to win the Rumbelows Cup, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the photograph that I sent you the other day, where the one on the cup where I've got a flat cap on as a young boy, massive curly watch glass.
Yeah, you are a young lad on that one, I gotta say.
Arcade, curly watts, whatever you want to call me.
Deirdre Barlow for all the young ones out there.
Got a teddy bear, as you do, on the cup. But that was from the semi-final at Hillsborough, and we beat Chelsea. Yeah, we beat Chelsea in the semi-final. And again, from the season, it's the old Didwell Wilson game that where Wilson smashed one in the top corner of volley. We won 3-1. So yeah, it was a good to come in as a youngster that sort of time. I think we'd just gone up. We won the Rumbelows Cup. We had a side that was an unreal side, wasn't it? When you look back, even from the fullbacks like Worthington, King, and then Shez Rimsfield. Obviously, Hurst. That's my first memory, but Pearson, like what a side.
That's. I mean, looking back at that, there's a good reason why probably a lot of fans became Wednesday fans, because they do, don't they, with teams, teams that stand out, and you think, looking back now, you think that era, the early 90s, was obviously in the last 40 years has been the best period we've had for a while. So I can totally understand why. Obviously, you started at a very good age, and like you say, your family and everyone, same with a lot of people we speak to, it's a family thing. You're what people call a legacy owl, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Which goes back a while and generations and things, and that's no disrespect to anyone. I don't mind any supporter to any football team how they became supporter. It's just great to hear, and it's quite a thing with Wednesday that they are a lot of legacy owls.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you said, it just happened to fall at a good time where we were in a pretty successful period. Obviously, a few years later, we got to a cup finals, got to Europe. But I think, like, if that had not been the case, like I said, because of the family background, if we'd have been sat in the old third division now, which is where we are, I'd have still been where I am now. And same applies on the generational thing. I've got a young one. He's 4, so he's literally just getting into football. He's starting to understand football, goes to that a little kickers type thing. Yeah. But he knows already where I'm at. Like, if football's on, is that Wednesday? Every game to him's Wednesday. He's not. But he was in that way. Are you going to? I've got this T-shirt on today. Are you going to Wednesday today? So he's starting to get the idea now. He'll not be too far off games, but right now he's at an age where I'll be leaving after 10 minutes. I'll take him at a minute because that's his attention span right now. But he's starting to grasp it that he's a Wednesday fan.
Yeah,
he's got no choice like I had.
So in 30 years' time, God forbid that we're still doing this podcast, and probably Fudge will still be hosting it, because I don't think he's going to ever age with all the Botox he has. Your lad might be on giving you the exact same story. So
I would love nothing more, mate, than if he's that affiliated. Yeah, of course.
That would be great. I'm exact same. I've told everyone on this before. I'm the same. My old man took me. My memory is shocking, so I can't actually remember my first game. But and I've got a lad same who's 14, who's the reason I go now, really, to be honest. So he loves it. He wants to go home and away. So
he was, to be honest, a bit of a not ideal especially for a Wednesday podcast. There was one game that season, and it was on the back of, because Italian United got me into it. I literally, from what I'm told, my memory's not this good, so I have to listen to my mum. But from what I'm told, when we went out of Italian United, probably I cried and got put to bed because I thought I was never going to see Gaza again. So whatever league United were in that following year, I'm assuming top end again, they played Spurs, and my dad took me to the lane as well, just so I could see Gaza. But that's literally the one game I've ever found. Just to clarify, get a bit for that on Twitter, I would imagine. But
hey, mate, I totally agree with that one. I would have done the same. I mean, there's times I've been to matches that just to see the player, and the bloody player didn't even play. You know what I mean? I went a couple of years ago. I went to go and watch Messi. I think it was Argentina played Italy in a friendly at Man City at Etihad, and he was on the bench. His name chanted from minute one, didn't come on. So yeah, that was a wasted trip. Good game though, anyway. So I totally understand that. So obviously in that era, so I'm going to keep in that era of, you mentioned Hurst, you mentioned a few other names.
Yeah.
What one of those players must have stood out for you if you think back in the early 90s, let's go obviously 90 to 93, 94, or where obviously you are growing up, you're getting into it, you're going to the games more regular. Is there a player that, I asked this question, but it's not the first Wednesday player you fell in love with, should we say? I'm not metaphorically not like that, but do you know what I mean?
We have to explain that. I would obviously, Hurst kind of goes without saying from that era. Like I said, when you go to your first game and he scores 4, that's always going to stick in your head. But I would say John Sheridan was my favourite player through that era. Helped by the fact, obviously, he scored the winner in the cup final. But I think even now, when you look back, he was just like a bit of a magician for me. Like Sheridan I remember a free kick goal. I don't know if it's Luton away, somewhere like that. A free kick where we've knocked it back to him, flicked it up. He literally flicked it up for himself and volleyed it top corner. And like as playmakers and things go, I think John Sheridan was my favourite player, to be honest. There was a few in that era though. Even this what you think about now. I remember a bit later on, Carlton was sat on the note, and Carlton Palmer scored a first half hat-trick against QPR. I liked Palmer. I think it was more difficult to find. I mean, you don't ever really not like players as such when they're playing for Wednesday, but obviously we've been through troubled times. But I think in that era, I think it was you'd struggle to name a player who you didn't like, really. There's people coming on in the later stages, Tricky Trev, that sort of thing. Like, just an unbelievable squad, really.
Do you think that, saying that, do you think that helps, obviously, because it was a bit of a purple patch as well, so players do stand out, don't they? You know, when you're winning or you are up there and you're getting third in the league, you are getting to 3 cup finals, 5 trips to Wembley and all that. You do, don't you? You get players that stand out. I mean, for me, Roland Nielsen, and it's an obvious one again. We say names, aren't we? But for me, Roland Nielsen was a Rolls Royce. I to be not in a fancied position as well. Do you know what I mean? It was
Nielsen was a class, obviously outstanding. And like when I've played football for years, I was a right back. So he's like your model right back. But he, going back on the family route, like my dad was still around. He was a Roland Nielsen would never ever be beaten by any other player through my dad's life. He was absolutely loved him. Literally, when I lost it, I went to clear his locker out of work after what happened, and he got a poster up of him. He's 58-year-old and got a Roland Nielsen poster in his locker.
Hey, that's fantastic. No shaming that at all.
So yeah, class player, both fullback. I think Worthington was a left back, weren't he, through that era? Like they were kind of old school overlapping fullbacks, weren't they? Like unbelievable.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, yeah, that's just saying some of the names, doesn't it? Puts a smile on your face. I can see you smiling. You know, like it's because of that era it is, and as Wednesdayites, that era is very fondly remembered, and it should be, because even now, I've been to some of the like gentlemen's evenings, the talks. Sheridan did one at Hillsborough, I think it was early this year or like last year. Absolutely fantastic how they are revered and thought of. It's great, and why not? I love it.
I think the stories in that, from that, obviously football's kind of it's a completely different game now, but the story, I wish I still had a video player, because like think back to like I think it was like Will to Win and League Cup Glory and that, you know, the season reviews, and used to watch behind the scenes, and there was Hurst and John Arks on the coach, like having a bit, and then it showed you after they'd won, Hurst had a few and that, like proper good times then. But I wish obviously I love the fact that that's when I started to be a Wednesday fan. But I was still like 7 years old moving up. I kind of wish that era had been 8-10 years on, you know, because the memories are there, but they're not obviously as vivid as I would like them to be. I just remember watching it all back at times thinking, like, this is unbelievable. Even like into like a bit later on when we got Paul Warhurst, when we got into Europe and we got the likes of Warhurst and people like that. I mean, he was one of my favorites, Warhurst.
I think his story and the way it come about, I think was pretty, and it just stuck with a lot of people. I mean, the way he played as well, he pretty. I mean, it was a great time, and like we said, you could talk all hours and hours about that, can't you? But like you said, I totally agree. Like I said, I'm a couple of years older than yourself, but I'm the same. If I was 18, 20 then, it must have been an absolute paradise for a Wednesday fan then. And then obviously moving on into like latter years, I mean, the early 2000s and things that you don't really want to remember anymore. But we were at that age that you do it. You remember that more rather than... So it's like going through to that now, and obviously the latter day, what is there any sorts of stories, or I don't know, do you travel to many away games when you were a bit younger, or I know you said you've got kids now, so it might not be as
not so much now. We get to the odd one. Like I'm not going to sit on here and be one of them claims to go, load away games because I've got too many mates who'll watch this. So no, you don't. They must be all the listeners then. As I'd like to, but we do still get to when we can. But like we generally, for some reason, always tend to get to the first ones of the season of recent years. And there's been Wigan away. I remember going to that one about, it was like 5-6 years ago. All the trains got cancelled in the morning, so that was a nightmare every day. Reading away. I remember that one, first game of the season a few years back when Hutchinson scored.
I got to that one. That was horrible. I didn't like Reading at all.
Played in that green kit, and Kadeem Harris scored like early doors, and he looked like a world beater. We've had some in different plays as well. Like we just spent 5-10 minutes talking about the good era. What's the sort of player that you think that you've seen over the obviously the last 20 odd 30 odd years that you thought should have made it, should have been, or should have done better for Wednesday, loan or even just one of these one season guys that come in and because we're going back some and like you can look at the loan players that we've had that we'd have wished we'd have kept or even just got rid of. I think there's players we wish we'd have kept, so who were good for us as loans. So you think like the likes of Kenwyn Jones, people like that. Wish we could have kept in like quite a dark day. He come in, scored 7 in 7 or whatever it were. Like we've had a few really good loan signings who we kind of fall in love with a lot. We know it's a bit of a thing. We've had a loan players who we do, but how many loan players have we had who have been terrible and then gone elsewhere and then been the exact opposite? I mean, there's that list endless, isn't it? I mean, even random players, like you forget we have people like, I don't know, Agbonlaho, who came in, he were all right. Then he finishes up in Premier League. But
Aston Villa's leading goal scorer in Premier League, isn't he?
Who would ever when he weren't horrendous. I mean, he was no. I don't know how critical you can be on these sort of things. Like these people like Bothroyd, who I got excited about signing.
Barkley for me, Ross Barkley. I was excited about him, and he
I thought he did all right for us.
Stopped and started. I thought he could have been. I thought he could have been a lot better, but obviously his career went on, and then fell off a cliff.
He's back right now, isn't
it? There's lots and lots.
Look, loan players and that. We've had some. Bloody hell, you can go up to this season with Mark McGuinness, can't you? When everyone fell in love.
Don't mention his name.
Oh dear, how different that could have been. But we've had a few. Hector was good the other year. Like Kenwyn Jones is the one.
Yeah, sticks in my mind as well.
loan signing that stands out. And then we've had random like goalkeepers like Scott Carson and that lad we had from Everton. I can't remember his name now. Ian Turner. Like they have made differences. I don't know who do I think could have gone on to better things. I don't know. I've liked some of them.
Yeah.
Who's a Moroccan Bulgaria?
Oh yeah. I was gonna say Lazar, from Newcastle, who got injured.
I like Lazar. Left, and like his delivery in that, like unbelievable. I think did he do his hamstring and then we never saw him again.
Yeah, he played 3 or 4 games. And I thought he looked pretty good. Yeah.
Didn't he come at the same time as someone else from Newcastle? Was it? Well, at the same time. No, it was pre-Murphy, weren't it?
Was it Josh Onomar? The time he come, I think it was Onomar as well. Yeah, there was signed 2 or 3, didn't we? Signed decent signing.
I forgot about Lazar. To be fair, these are the types of players until you bring them up. But yeah, Lazar, like he was one of them. I really want to sign him permanent. It was. To be honest, it was too good for us to sign permanent.
Of course. Yeah, it was. It
would have been nice. Yeah, he could ping it, couldn't he?
So is there? So obviously we'll come up to a bit of a more. We've talked about it a bit more recent. So obviously this current squad, the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's not been the prettiest, has it? It's not been the best, and the results and things like that. And even we'll not go into it, but obviously the club as a whole, it's been going through changes and changes.
Yeah,
it's not been great at Hillsborough, has it? In the last, well, it can go back even 10 years, can't we? Really, to be honest. But it's what's your thoughts on obviously the club? I'm not going to go into obviously you can whatever you want, not obviously managers or owners or anything, but just in the whole of the club and what's Ryan's thought on the club as it is?
I think the last, like you say, it can be going up 10 years now. We're constantly just like a massive roller coaster, aren't we? Let's be honest. Like emotion wise, every season we've got like so much hope, more than ever this season, which we might still get there. We might, but I don't know. I do think there's like the first Carlos season, which was 2015, was it?
15, 16, was it? Yeah.
That season and that squad of players, like I was one of them, to be honest, when we appointed Carlos. I never heard of him.
No.
Everyone's on Wikipedia is like kind of more clubs than Tiger Woods, and you just think, who's this guy? What's happening here? But to be honest, that season, like, I loved that season. Like that as a group of players, there was players in there. Like, so obviously, I think it was Bannon's probably first season.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Forestieri, like Gary Hooper's one of my favourite players of all time. To be honest, I still stand by. Everyone loved Forestieri. Obviously, everyone loves Bannon, and rightly so. There was good players in that side. Who you think about? Even the fullbacks, Hunt, Pudel. It was like Louvens and Lees, wasn't it? That was a good squad. I still think Hooper was the man in that side. So like that sort of year, I know we
see, you talk about it, even though, don't you? You even talking the names and the thing is like you weren't like what you've just been talking about 10 minutes ago about the 90. It's because of what it represents as well, and it's like should have been, could have been.
It isn't levels, but like, what do I think of the club? That's why I loved that season. We failed at the final hurdle. To be honest, I don't even know how we got to Wembley. I don't know. We played Brighton at home. I know they had a few players go off, but then we played them away and they absolutely battered us. Yeah. And then Ross Wallace crossed one in. I thought, this is it. This is our year, because how have we even got here? Obviously, we didn't really turn up at Wembley. But there's still been some good times. The playoff games are like really good to be at Hillsborough, but it really worries me how we've kind of gone about the playoffs. I just hope we go about it a bit differently this year. I think like the following season, it was when we played Huddersfield.
That was awful, yeah.
And they had an end to the season that weren't quite as bad as our results have been of recent, but they'd not had a good end to the season, and we just went so negative. And I just kind of hope that ain't the way we go about it this year.
Yeah, it was the first leg at Huddersfield that did me. It was
100%.
just
Nowhere.
anti-football. Yeah, he
Yeah.
just isn't. It was like it was the game at Derby this season, away at Derby this season. So anti-football, negative. Didn't even go to win the game. But obviously, that was in the great run we were having, and Derby were unbeaten in like 15 as well. I think it was something silly. But yeah, that Huddersfield game, and then to obviously Stephen Fletcher scored a cracking goal.
Yeah, right. And
just
looked at it, and then we just sat back, didn't we? We just sat.
That was it. It was like a switch. Soon as the goal went in, it was just that's it, and that's how Carlos really wanted to try and see eke out a result. And like I said, the history obviously shows.
You worry too much about them, which is kind of something that's been a bit of a feature of recent years at times, regardless who managers have been. We seem to, I don't know, spend a bit too. Sunderland, let's be honest, Sunderland playoffs last year weren't great, were it? Again, away leg was horrific. And then we got back in it at Hillsborough, and then last minute, Mendes Lang doesn't track his man and they score.
Yeah. That's things like that stick in your memory, and that's what football is, isn't it, mate? It's memories, and it's bits and incidents and goals and players that you think, look back on, and you associate people with that. So like I would associate Mendes Lang. Doesn't matter what he does, how he does whatever in another life or whatever.
That's my only memory of him now. I can just picture him not tracking his man back. And I saw that he did it again for Derby the other week, and he worries me now because if we do get Derby in playoffs, I don't want him to be the man to kill us 2 years running in playoffs. I've got two worries if we get Derby. One's him and one's McGoldrick.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Because if he's winner, I will. The Twitter's gone, which might think a lot of people, but yeah, that's gone.
Yeah, it's if anyone's listening to this now, which you will be after because we've recorded this bit before, then it's either a yay or a shit. You can decide, everyone listening or watching. It's
Well, if this goes out after the playoffs and I'm no longer on Twitter, it's because the Golden.
That's it. I could put that out. I'll edit that out just as a short clip for you, Ryan, just to put out, and you can tweet that out as many times as you want. But no, I'm sure we will not need to use that. So, right up to present day, we're just on about talking and everyone about obviously what could, should, hopefully will happen.
Yeah.
This squad, this current squad. So let's go. What do you like? What don't you like about the current squad at the minute? Obviously, this is open-ended. It's just you're just talking about Wednesday, so it's not anything you want, mate. It's like
I did like. I really, really liked the midfield trio of Byers, Bannon, and Vokes. I think it was just literally perfect, and they complemented each other perfectly. But I think Vokes, I'm a massive fan of. I know he had his critics at the start. I just think
for me that was right as well. I just didn't think he got into it to the start, but he needed games, which is a lot of players, aren't they? You've got to have games.
Yeah, I thought. I don't know. There was elements of it that was hard. I mean, I saw tweets like comparing him to Lewis Wing, like, and his time at Hillsborough. Yeah, come on, that's
harsh. Jesus.
So yeah, as he's grown, like I think he's been one of the players of the season, to be honest. And I can imagine, like, I've spoke because of obviously the line of weight. I spoke to him there, and I've seen him at the season awards the other night, and I can imagine, like, as a bloke to be around the changing room, he just seems like absolutely bang on, like top man. So what I liked about the side was the midfield setup. Obviously, we can't help what's happened with Byers. Smith, I thought, started the season. I know he's got he's hit form again recently. I thought he started really well. He's like, I expected when Smith came, to be honest, from Rotherham. I've not seen enough of him, but I kind of expected him just to be a big target man who would hit his head. And I think he's a really good footballer, like his link up and that. But the thing that I think we could have done, I do think, like a lot of fans, I think we could have done with a bit more strength in depth in January. and I think defensively we've had one or two performers, should I say, that have been consistent. Palmer, obviously, being one of them. And to be fair, like, and I can be critic, up until this season, I've never really been the biggest. I've never had anything against him. I didn't think he was the player that I've seen this season.
Yeah. I'm in that camp as well. He's not offended me. He's not been on a pedestal for, you know what I mean? He's been there. He's been a good squad player. I know, but I think for the work that he's putting in pre-season, as it just shows that with the charity runs that he did every day, it must have done something. He must have put enormous amount of work in, because he's been Mr. Consistent in any position he's played. There's only just been a handful of games that I could say he's had a bit of trouble and thing, or made a couple of mistakes, but very rare. Not like you could other players that you could say, oh, they've had like a 4, 5, 6 game run that they've been pretty shocking. So,
but he's had his best season. I just think, I've said it, like, I think it's too easy sometimes to kind of blame injuries and things on how the season tailed off, and I don't want to do that. I do think that we should have strengthened, but the fact there has been certain injury. The Byers and Windass, like, coming into the second half of the season was outstanding, to be fair. And I think the Byers injury, it's not the missing him as a player as such, although he's a brilliant player. I think it completely changes Bannon's game, and he sits so much deeper. And when he's further up the field, he's obviously the best player in the division for me, when he's able to get a bit further forward. And I think Byers not been there has dropped him back a little bit. So it could have been also different. I don't know. With the injuries as well, I sometimes wonder if we could have looked to try and change things a little bit. We've persisted with a system that, even when we've not had centre halves available, we've kind of still tried to stick with 3 centre halves. I don't know if that's gone against us. Look, we can all be like,
oh yeah,
the football manager, and like, I know people. If things don't go right, I am kind of one of them. Admittedly, who the first person I'll point the finger at is the manager, but I'm not doing that job, Anna. So it's easy for me to sit and say there's just little things I just wish could have gone a bit differently. But every fan who watches this, or every fan who comes on here, they'll say similar things. We can all be experts in our own heads, can't we? I suppose.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, we're all common in one thing. We want the club to do well, want the team to do well. Of course, we're doing it, and I don't think, for me, don't really matter who's in charge for that, as long as we get promoted and obviously get to the. Honestly, I was just about to say get to the Premier League, but
yeah,
I don't know if personally, I don't know if I'm bothered.
I just want to get.
Do you really want to go to the game on a Sunday afternoon every other week, or play on a?
I'm all right getting. I am desperate for us to get in the Championship, and like, it's one of them now. With, like, you see the world of Twitter and stuff, and because I mean, that person who's quite critical, you get that comments like, "Oh, you'd rather see us fail just so you can say you were right." Like, are you mental? Why do you think I get this up about things? I don't want to watch another. I don't want to watch another season of this League One level football, and that's not being critical of Wednesday, but the level as a whole. Like, for me, even down to the officiating, like down to everything we play against, want to like time waste from first minute. It's just like, I love match day. I love seeing the lads and that. Go to pub before. It's good atmosphere. The football that we watch for 90 minutes in League One, let's face it, it's not very good, is it? It's just not. Even when we beat Forest Green 5-0 at home, I mean, did anyone really come away from that game thinking, bloody hell, that was brilliant today? It's a bit of a no-win for them, because kind of we beat 5-0 and everything. Well, yeah, we should be beating them 5-0. As it turns out, we shouldn't, because then we went to their ground and lost. But
that's probably that is for me, and that's probably, if listing and we don't go up and things, that is the low light of my season, that Forest Green trip.
An absolute And even now we sit here and they've won one game in 23. Like that is the killer. We needed to win one of them. There's the Oxford away game, albeit that they get a penalty on the floor.
Cheltenham went as well. It was it Lincoln at home, the 1-1 Lincoln.
One win, Burton Albion away. One win from their game, and we go into Saturday like we're still with an opportunity to go up. Like one win from them, and that's where you have to like come back and say, all right, we've had injuries. But for me, like any team that has that sort of gap coming into the running, I think we were 5 points clear, 2 games in hand, which is irony actually, because I remember back in 2012 when we all gave it United for being 5 points clear and 2 games in hand, and we pipped into it, and we've done the same. I just think it's a bit inexcusable as a drop off, given the teams that we've played, that we managed to somehow drop into third. But
we've mentioned this on the podcast and in the chat and everything, and I've said I would love to know what's happened. And obviously, this is a mute point by the time this goes out because we'll have been promoted anyway. So, but
exactly.
I'd love to know what's happened. If it is a mental thing, if it's just bad luck or injuries have done us. I don't know. I really don't. I'd love to know. We'll never know. It's a shit question, like, but that's it. So I'm gonna just on that. We'll finish up now, but obviously, I'll ask you, Ryan, for your player of the season at the minute. I know it's not the end of the season, and I know everything. There's still hopefully 4 games to play, but at this stand, who would you get your vote? Shall I say?
I would still go. I don't know. It's tricky because I worry how much we've missed Windass goals and assists since he went and got injured. And then this Palmer who's been Mr. Consistent. But I would you know what? I've kind of alluded to it before. But for me, I think a player who does the bad side of the game really well and breaks up play. I think Vokes has had a really good season. He's grown into it and he's kind of become one of the first name on the team sheet. So it between one of the midfield 2, Vokes, and still Bannon. Bannon still creates or pulls things out of the blue. The goal is up for goal of the season. Cheltenham at home, Oxford away, albeit they got that penalty. They weren't. They're moments of brilliance that we see more often from him, certainly this season, and has pulled things out of the bag when we've needed it. So Vokes or Bannon, I'm going to sit on fence. Sorry, I can't split him.
No, mate. I'd still, even now, if I was asked to vote, I'd be like you, mate. I'd still be umming and ahhing and give the pros and cons to anyone. But
if we were given a half player of the season, then you'd ask me at the turn of the year, then McGuinness gets it by a mile.
Oh, by a mile, yeah. Yeah, and it'd still be in my reckoning now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it, but yeah, that's a player that I would love to see come back. And obviously we're talking as recording, but he's had some pelters over the last few days from the Cardiff fans. So they can give whatever they want to him and we'll have him. I'll have him.
I don't know if it worries me a little. The only thing that worries me a bit with that is is that down to, is it a big step up? You know, is he look class in League One? And if we go up, we pull that type of player in. Is it not so good? I don't know. Maybe he's just happier. Some players find they're at a club and they settle in there and do well, don't they? So let's kind of hope it with that.
Yeah.
But we've certainly missed him. I know that, none more so given the defensive injuries that we've had, but I thought it was just class.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'd love to see him back in a Wednesday shirt. And like you say, if it's a step up in class, then I hope to his, if you're listening to this and we've not gone up and we can tempt him back, then that'd be all more for us, I think. Well, thank you very much, Ryan, for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking about Wednesday and putting the worlds to right a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, is there?
Always good. Sometimes you just got to empty your head of Wednesday to someone else, mate, ain't you? And I'm sure we'll be there again in a few weeks, but hopefully when we're starting a new season in Championship.
Hopefully, yeah. That's what it's all about, mate. This is why we do it. This is why we want to just get people on, just talk Wednesday for half an hour, and obviously stop doing whatever they're doing in midweek, and just have a smile on your face for a bit. But thank you very much for joining us. Cheers everyone for listening. This has been my Wednesday for the Wednesday week. It's great doing this thing. There's plenty more coming on and lots of stuff coming up. So please like, subscribe, all the usual social media crap. And cheers. We'll see you real soon.